Hey everyone, today we're gonna do another discussion video of another discussion point that was brought up by a buddy, his channel called Fall Off the Map. He's an American expat living abroad. He's also a professional electrician contractor by trade, you know, for various work abroad and things like that, but he's got a really cool channel. I've actually posted a community post before about his channel as well, because he's trying to build a self-sustaining small farm in the country he lives in now, and he's hoping to open a bed and breakfast. I think at least that's still what his goal is, which is awesome. I would love to visit that at some point in the future. But he had a really good question. To get to the point. So his question was just, or his topic to bring up to discuss was just talking about intelligence and counterintelligence work. It's a very, very broad topic, but it boils down to, with gathering intelligence, what assets you have at your disposal, apart from the proactive operations and activities you do, advanced planning, surveillance, reconnaissance. We've talked about those before. And then countering that with getting information on those individuals and suppressing, removing, or providing misinformation intelligence, or wrong intelligence otherwise, to throw a potential a risk, potential threat or adversary off your trail, so to speak. Again, very wide, broad topic. S2 Underground has a couple of good videos on intelligence and counterintelligence stuff. I mean, they are intel specialists. My buddy Will over at Gutter Fighting Secrets, he's got a program that incorporates intelligence and counterintelligence, apart from some other things regarding travel safety, which I've helped write a PDF manual before as well with him for that. That's for sale, apart from the program that he has talking about intelligence and counterintelligence as it pertains to prepared citizens as well as for the private security industry. So looking at this from a private security background, again, for those that don't know my background, apart from being an Army veteran, I've worked in the private sector security industry for 17 years, both in a range of ways: private military contracting or just defense contracting. I've worked as in executive protection, and I've also worked just up until recently for almost 10 years as an analyst and consultant for a buddy of mine's private investigation firm that he has pretty much closed shop on, unfortunately. Just comes with the times. So, and a number of other things, as doing advising, consulting, and things like that that I've done and that I do. So when it comes down to the point of intelligence and counterintelligence, tools that you can use to gain intelligence on an individual or a group or things like that. The internet is one of your best tools nowadays, apart from human intelligence, getting intelligence from people that have connections or affiliation or just knowledge of those people or that organization, the area, things like that. The internet and all of the digital information, data, and intelligence that's out there now, major asset. It's a gift and a curse. There are a lot of tools out there that you can use to look up someone's information. Everything from public access court records to personal information, phone numbers, addresses, things like that. Those tools are out there. And if in the professional space, those are tools that we use, apart from any connections to law enforcement and having requests for information in those professional segues and routes, apart from a number of other things. There's a lot of different things that you can use. Some of those tools are open source intelligence, and some of those are proprietary paid services or limited in scope of tools based on your certifications and credentials and what you're allowed to access. But there's a lot of tools out there. You can literally find pretty much anything on anyone, to an extent, at least here in the United States. Abroad, it's a little bit different. Obviously, if it's an American citizen who's living abroad, you can still get some semblance of information on them, and otherwise. And for people, for non-Americans, for just foreigners outside of the United States and things like that, there are avenues of ways to get information on individuals. Again, human intelligence and various types of digital sourcing intelligence and otherwise, inquiring with a foreign government entity, Interpol, a number of other things. There's a lot of tools out there to gain intelligence on somebody. again, it's very broad, but I'm just trying to cover some of the bases here. And some of the potentialities for somebody to get intelligence on you, which is, we'll move into counterintelligence here. So with counterintelligence, one of the biggest things is to try and mitigate, minimize, or remove as much of your digital footprint as possible. Some things are unavoidable, like your address, because of postal records and things like that. That information is going to be in certain accessible systems and things like that. But a lot of other information can be removed or hidden. It's a complicated process. Whether it's credit information or a number of other things, it's unavoidable because some of that information is going to be available to an extent no matter what. But a lot of other information you can control to remove or prevent being seen from people. In the digital space, social media and things like that, don't be posting when you're going on a trip, until you're done with the trip, really. You shouldn't be doing that while you're getting ready to leave for a trip or while you're on the trip, kind of thing. A lot of people do that nowadays, with Instagram and all these other sites and stuff. But that gives you a profile of, hey, this person is here and they're making these movements to these areas and stuff, just by basic image and area study and things like that, and any other information that people elicit out openly. So minimizing your digital footprint is first priority. Second priority is any connections or affiliations with foreigners. If you're if you're outside the United States, affiliations with foreigners, because a lot of the time, an adversarial group or a state entity, a government entity, or otherwise, can not only get your information from what you have to do to either live there temporarily or where you're working there or whatever. They're going to have some of that information, a little bit at least. But also some of those entities, those supposed or potential risks or threats out there, they're going to have a network. They're going to know people. They're going to go talk to people and ask questions about you and try and get a profile of information on you, whether it's talking to your neighbors, whether it's talking to a government official and paying them a little bit of hush money to get some information from you, whatever's on record. There's a number of things that foreign state entities and just foreign groups otherwise and individuals can do to accomplish that. So, there's a fine balance there. It is difficult because when you're dealing with a foreign government to a certain extent, at least in a lot of non-Western European and American countries, that information can be pretty easy to get. And that works both ways. Whether you need to get a profile on a group or a person or whatever, but also people that can get information on you. So it is a balancing act, but it's also, you really have to work hard to try and mitigate any risks of exposure of your information to individuals you don't want to have it. But again, those groups too, or those individuals, they can utilize the open access social media and all that stuff and look at and get information. Oh, okay. They can figure out where somebody lives. They can figure out a number of other things. Some of the tools that we have here in the United States aren't available outside of the country as far as access to information goes, but they can figure other things out to the point where they can figure out where you live and a number of other things. So there are preventative measures that you can take, but at the same time, there's only so much when getting to a point where you're buying a vehicle or becoming a resident of that country or whatever, that or you're there long term with visas, extra visas and things like that, where your information is held by the government and can be disseminated otherwise. Having some connection with not only your traveler's insurance agency, but also a digital security organization to help protect your information is actually really important when you're abroad. And very helpful if you haven't taken those mitigating steps before leaving the U.S. or wherever country you're from. So those are some things to take into consideration too. That's really what it boils down to, is just be mindful about what you say out in public, what you're telling people that you haven't properly vetted and trust, your digital presence, your footprint online, all that stuff. It's just being cognizant of all that, and taking mitigating steps and using mitigating tools to prevent some of that information getting into the wrong hands, so to speak. When it comes to things like scammers, there's a lot of tech support scamming, people posing as IRS agents and fake stuff, very common callers from places like India or the Philippines or Nigeria or other places. A lot of the time, those people are just buying data from data brokers, which again goes back to the digital footprint, or they're just cold calling numbers, or just sending out mass emails to just random email addresses. It can go either way. But if they have bought your information, you need to use a identity protection and monitoring service. There's a number of them out there that you can use to get that information off of these data mining and sales websites and the dark web and things like that. Digital space is a big thing anymore nowadays, but human intelligence, again, like I was saying earlier, is a big thing too. So just be careful who you talk to. Just be careful of what you're saying out in public, and that people can elicit from you. And people, if they can figure out where you are and start to do surveillance and reconnaissance on you and stuff, they can look for patterns and follow those patterns. That is unavoidable to an extent. You've got to go to the market, you've got to go get gas, you've got to do these things, go to the bank here and there, things like that. But changing that up a little bit, instead of doing it every day during the week or at a certain time every day, again, unavoidable, certain things like picking kids up from school and things like that. But, randomize it up a little bit. Don't always necessarily go to the same market. I know sometimes it's difficult, especially if there's great prices. I get it. I would be the same way. Sometimes change it up a little bit, and I've talked about route planning before. Take multiple different routes whenever you're traveling in your normal everyday things. That's a good way to counter any tracking techniques and further intelligence gathering techniques that may be exercised upon you. Yeah, that's really what it boils down to, is a lot of just mindfulness, proactivity, and utilizing various tools that are available and services that you can use. A lot of them with the digital protection services and things like that, you're going to have to pay for unless you're government contractor or we're in the military or whatever, and you do have a free identity protection service that's available to you through OPM, Office of Personnel Management. But yeah, so there's a lot of tools and methods out there. You can do a lot of research on this stuff because there's a lot of tools out there. But take some of those understandings of concepts and techniques and stuff, and put them into practice for yourself if you need to use them, or you need to counter some of those things. Again, some of it is unavoidable, but there are some things that you can do just to be more careful to protect yourself when it comes to intelligence, counterintelligence. So that's kind of what it boils down to. A little bit of a discussion here. So hopefully this helps some people. Thanks for tuning in. More stuff coming soon. Metal up.